soon as that gets done playing around. Mike, you ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Finish your water.
Ready, set, go.
All right, here we go. Oh, wait, I'm totally off square here.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I had everything set up. It's been 3 weeks since we've done this, so
Right.
I had everything set up for the last couple weeks doing other stuff, so here we go.
And now for something special. The unit is self-contained with its own saddler, farrier, wheelwright and so on. It's a rigorous training dished out who know all there is to know about horses, and it brings results.
We take you behind the scenes now to show just some of the interesting aspects of this training.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine, the award-winning #1 podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stine is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF-1 accreditation. On this week's show, we have Dr. Julia Fisher, the Secretary of the South Carolina Horse Council. She's here in the studio live with us talking about legislation and promotion of the equine community, education, and animal welfare programs that the South Carolina Horse Council does offer. All this and much more will be discussed here on Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. And over on my far hand side is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing okay, Travis. How are you doing?
Welcome back, Season 12, Episode 1, and we're kicking it off with a banger. We have a great guest here in the studio, so make sure you stick around. Make sure you share us to all your friends and family out there. We're going to talk to Julie here in just one sec, but right now I want to get caught up with Mike. Mike, what have you been doing for the last 3 or 4 weeks, or when's the last time we were on? It seems like days and weeks ago.
About a little longer break because of, they had to get horses ready for the Carolina International down there in Rayford. And I did visit that on Friday and Saturday. I ran across a few of my customers, got to see a few of them compete. And I understand you were remodeling
the bathroom, right?
How'd that go?
Well, let's just say the drywall's up. And now we have to put all the plumbing back in, like all the fixtures and stuff. So we have to move the vanity in there and hook that all up.
But you got a lot done.
I got what I could get done, yes. Yeah. By myself with my expertise.
Right.
We got what we could done. It's still...
Well, if you need to torn up and torn out, I could do that.
So you were walking up here to the studio, and you look like you're Frankenstein walking up the hill trying to get here in the studio. Now, we broadcast every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, a little town we like to call Marshville. And Mike was walking up the driveway. We sit on about 22 some odd acres here, and we have a studio up above our garage here. It's all fitted out for everyone, just to get everyone caught up on what goes on here in the studio. And we also have a YouTube channel. You can see everyone here in the studio. And as you're walking up here to the studio, Mike, you were walking like Frankenstein. For what's wrong? What's going on with you?
Oh, that's first steps out of the truck. Last few weeks I've been pushing a pretty hard pace and just showing a little wear and tear, trying to outrun time and gravity, and it's not working. So
you said you were out where were you out doing all the show prep and
Well, I had clients that were ready. I had to go do some extra stuff over at Becky's. You remember Becky?
Becky Holder, yeah.
Yep.
Olympic. She was an Olympic athlete in the equestrian field, and now she's a trainer at her own facility. And where's that facility at?
It's down off 742 south of Wadesboro. People wouldn't believe we got an Olympian in the neighborhood, but we do.
Now we have a brand new barn, a brand new facility coming up here just up the road from us, about 2 miles up the road. Have you seen that new facility?
I have not.
So when you leave the studio here, take a left and go down about 2 miles on the right hand side. It's a huge place. The property's probably as big as ours here. It looks like, now we have a little 6-stall barn here.
Right.
They have it's got to be at least a 14 to 18 stall barn down there, and they just put an arena down there, and they have a brand new barn facility, but I'm not seeing a house on the property yet. So it's like the priorities were build the barn, build the pastures, and then we'll figure out a way to how to live.
Well, it may just be strictly a barn, you know.
Yeah, but there's got to be some kind of living quarters there. Like even the hands there, are they going to drive there every day? You don't know.
I have no idea.
Well, we have lots to talk about, lots to get into. Welcome back to Season 12, Episode 1. We're going to come back and we're going to talk to Dr. Julia Fisher from the South Carolina Horse Council. So stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back.
Great Greetings. This is Julia Fisher, Secretary of the South Carolina Horse Council, reaching out to urge you to join your South Carolina State Horse Council. The South Carolina Horse Council is the only statewide, all-volunteer, 501c3 organization that works for the benefit of the equine industry in South Carolina. Our mission is to connect, communicate, and educate. The South Carolina Horse Council represents all breeds, riding styles, and activity preferences. The council works to serve the horse community in a myriad of ways. For example, we help to educate our members, our elected officials, and the general public about the benefits of equestrian activities. South Carolina Horse Council holds clinics throughout the state on topics such as horsemanship, pasture management, equine nutrition, lameness, trailer safety, and barn management. Are you a member yet? Visit schhorsecouncil.com.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. Don't forget, you could be on the show with us. You can be part of the show. You can be right here in the studio with us. And the way you do that is go over to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says join the podcast. And when you hit that button, it opens up a screen there. And you see a little orange bar at the very top of the screen says leave a message. Your voice can come right here to our studio. And like I said, we broadcast every Monday morning at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, for those people who listen to us on the weekends, that's fine. You can still join the podcast, leave a voice message, and your voice can be played right alongside of us here in the studio. So if you have a question for Mike or question for any one of our guests that we've had here in the past, we'll listen to them and we'll answer them the best we can. And if you don't want to go on the air, we understand that as well. You can go to Equine Dynamics and fill out that form with your question and make sure you put a physical return address, and we'll send you out some stickers. And my very own return address is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good, Travis. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And joining us live here in the studio, jump over to YouTube right now, search Equine Dynamics or Equine Dynamics podcast, is Dr. Julia Fisher, the Secretary of the South Carolina Horse Council. Julia, thank you for driving all this way and joining us here in the studio.
Oh, I'm just delighted to be here, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
You look good over there. You're nice and comfortable. You look like you've been here for years doing this show. You look like
settled.
Yeah, you're settled in.
Yeah.
So and we appreciate the South Carolina Horse Council of everything they do. And one thing that a lot of people don't know, and I've learned just by listening to the ads and stuff that you have here on our show, is that it's not just South Carolina that you're focusing on. Granted, the name of the Horse Council is the South Carolina Horse Council, but you take in people from all over the United States. Do you do the world as well, or is it just kind of limited to the United States based on, the United States laws based on the EU laws?
So part of what the South Carolina Horse Council's mission is directly to impact and hopefully support the equine community in South Carolina. The interesting thing about that is that, frankly, there are South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia. Each state has their own council. And so we're all pretty much theoretically under the umbrella of the American Horse Council, which is the national organization. They operate out of Washington, D.C., and it's an umbrella organization that kind of sets us up for success, if you will, in each one of these states for the kinds of activities that the Horse Council as an entity, as an organization, is hoping to support. I did some homework over the weekend, actually, to try to get a handle on how our organization fits in with all these other organizations, because in my work and my research, I discovered that actually not every state has a horse council. Delaware, for example, has an equine council, and there's slightly different designations, but the purpose and the mission is effectively the same, and that is to try to support the equine community. Back in 1966, literally, the federal government passed legislation that basically recognized the importance of having some kind of promotion and research, as much as anything else, arm or entity to help keep a handle on just what's happening with these different, I'm going to call them commodities, throughout the United States. So most states have, on the basis of that support from the federal government, instituted some kind of commodity boards, and that's the kind of the verbiage that you usually see for these different entities within different states. And in South Carolina, for example, we have equine. No, we don't. That's the point. We don't have an equine commodity board, but we do have a poultry board, and we have a board for beef, and we have a board for pork, and we have a number of other entities. And one of the things that our legislative efforts have been trying to accomplish over the past several years is to establish a board at the government level. South Carolina Horse Council is a nonprofit organization. It's an independent entity that really exists on the basis of donations and membership dues. For what it's worth, our membership dues are very, very reasonable as far as I'm concerned. $20 a year for you to be a member of this organization. Yes.
No, the question that I have, you were talking about the beef board or the poultry board and all that stuff and being a commodity. Do you think that because technically people look at horses in a different way, as like we don't need them for what's your pen? That we don't eat them. That we don't eat them. We don't need them for the human race to survive is the reason why they probably go, well, horse people, just let horse people be horse people type deals. I mean,
yeah, and that's actually the problem right there, because of course, no, we don't eat them. At least we don't anymore. And one of the issues there is that puts them somewhat in the status of a household domestic pet. Right. So there's nobody really. And of course, most people know who've had anything to do with horses. They're a little bit more involved in terms of maintenance and care and everything else for a horse than your backyard dogs.
But I would like to argue that, you say that they're considered domesticated pets. What about the ASPCA, where they basically are taking care of like the dogs and stuff? They've got this huge, I believe it's a federal government committee. What's where you adopt the dogs and stuff, or is it the ASCPA?
I do not believe that those are government entities. Those are independent.
Are they? Okay, yeah. I stand corrected.
And most of them actually are nonprofits. So that's the other issue, of course. And you would want to argue that it should be independent. No, it should be independent, because the argument that comes up all the time, Travis, is we don't need another government agency. We don't need to have more tax dollars going into setting up something specifically for dogs or cats or horses, or
because they'll mess it up.
If I don't have a horse, why should I pay to have horses being promoted or taken care of?
But where I'm going at is, I guess everyone knows the ASCPA. That group. They know them from left to right, from up to down, from all across the borders. But people, for horses, it's not that well known. I mean, if you say South Carolina Horse Council, okay, you just all right, that's a horse council in South Carolina, and then there's a North Carolina. You said there's an American Horse Council, but it's not well known because. Is it? I would assume it'd be lack of funding, and I guess
absolutely. You just hit the nail on the head. It's lack of funding, and so that's the kind of thing where it basically ends up relegated to the states. And we don't want to get into political conversations here, but I'm going to say there is a question of states' rights and states' ability to make the determination based on their particular needs and their particular situation. For example, Arizona, Nevada, they have huge organizations designed, if you will, to manage the horses, because they actually have a huge number of horses. Interestingly, Delaware is third in the nation in terms of number of horses per capita per.
Wow.
And that's something I just learned this weekend as well, looking at some of these data. And it's really, again, up to each individual state to make a determination. Some places are horse places. South Carolina happens to be really firmly entrenched in the horse world for lots of reasons. It's geographic location, climate, all kinds of things that are really sort of independent of other things. And so you would expect certain kinds of things to happen in South Carolina, but we also have an extremely conservative and can I say conservatives, let's leave it at that, legislation and a legislature and populace that really doesn't want to be spending a whole lot of money on things. So we are actually way behind in terms of things like setting up some kind of a board. So maybe we don't need a commodity board, and that's where, again, in some states, the Horse Council, which is this independent nonprofit organization that operates within the state, will take over that responsibility of promoting and research and whatever. That, again, this 1966 legislation at the federal level authorized that the state might, they don't necessarily have an obligation, if you will, to provide funding for that, but they might want to help support an independent organization. So this is a kind of...
Mike, you were going to say something?
Well,
Sorry.
you look at the horse population in South Carolina, like through the winter.
Right.
And right now, not Camden so much. Used to be a lot more.
Used to be more.
Used to be a lot more. A lot of that has died down with the whole training center deal and all that. But you look at the horse population and the amount of money that rolls in the state through the winter, and in particular, you want to isolate the Aiken surrounding area.
Right.
And the activity that's on down there. There's a huge amount of money and a huge amount of horse flesh that comes down for winter training, winter competitions, and all that. And you used to get a lot of that in Camden, but the environment has changed so much down there that it's not that way near like it used to be.
Well, that's another place where, can I say, you just hit the nail on the head, and that is because there hasn't really been any effort whatsoever to try to maintain and support the facilities that we had. We had a number of them in the Camden area, and actually Charleston had quite a few as well in that area, and basically there's no support for them. So they've ended up dribbling across the border, and that's been one of the arguments that I've been making recently, actually, in the Horse Council and a number of our legislators, that the reason that 2023, we did a study, a statewide economic impact study to try to determine just what kind of money are we talking about. You know, people think of horses as a stereotypical notion of the horse owner as somebody who's got a lot of money. You know,
always, yeah. I tell people all the time, they're like going, "Oh, you got horses? You're so lucky." And I'm like, "Oh no, you don't understand."
No, well, and the interesting thing, by the way, there was a study done at a national level by the American Horse Council a few years ago, and they determined that the 50% of the horse owners in the United States today are making less than $50,000 a year as far as their national.
If they weren't at poverty level, once they got horses, they were.
Once they were,
and they're also trying to take. You know, most of them do have a family, whether they're married or whether they do have a child or several children, and a lien or not a lien, a mortgage. You know,
and they're trying to support this habit.
Right.
It's literally a habit.
It's literally a habit. So the other 50%, of course, are in varying levels of income. But part of the issue there then is that we tend to forget that if you own a horse, no matter what your income, you got a lot of outgo.
Right.
You got a lot of output. So if you have a horse, whatever else is happening, somebody is just making money. Somebody in the state is making money. It's the
trucks and trailers
and
feed
stores. It's the tire guy. It's the farrier. It's the dentist. It's the veterinarian. It's the guy who comes and fixes the fencing. It's the guy who's managing your pastures for you.
The trucking company that's bringing in all the hay.
Wait, hold on. You say people are making money. I do about 4 of those jobs. I'm not making anywhere that kind of money.
I understand. No,
you're underpaid for your worth, Travis.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick little break and come back, and we're going to talk a little bit more with Julia Fisher about the education program that they offer there at the South Carolina Horse Council. So stick around. You'll listen to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back.
How are we doing?
Good. Doing awesome. Yeah, you just got to be aware of the fidgeting, the pen.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you pick up my pen?
Oh, yeah.
Travis is used.
I just dropped it so I wouldn't be mucking around with it then.
Travis is used to dealing with immature children. He deals with me all the time.
Okay.
Not immature.
You're just saying that.
Well, okay. Julie, you ready?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Mike, you ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. Don't forget to follow him over on Facebook. The way you do that is search Equine Dynamics Mike Stine on Facebook. You're coming up to almost another 5,000-6,000 members over there on your Facebook page, Mike. So that's really good. And Mike posts a lot of different educational articles up there. He doesn't post anything about his lunch or anything. He posts things that are important to you and to the horse community. So it's a really good.
People wouldn't want to see stuff I eat.
No, so it's a really good follow if you want to continue your education. Go over to Facebook, search Equine Dynamics Mike Stine, and give him a follow. And my very own lunch friend over there is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good, Travis. How are you doing? When I get where I can talk.
Well, you know, this is episode 1 of season 12. You really haven't said my name too much. Hopefully not in bad terms in the last 3 weeks or so.
Well, I wouldn't tell you if I had.
Exactly. My ears were burning a couple times.
Yeah, if your ears really burnt, your head would have caught on fire.
And joining us this week in the studio, live here in the studio, you can see us over on YouTube as well, is Dr. Julia Fisher, the Secretary for the South Carolina Horse Council. Thank you very much for joining us. You look good over there. You settled in very nicely.
Thank you. I'm feeling good. I'm having a good time.
So we were going to dive into the education part of the South Carolina Horse Council. But before we start, in the last, my hands are going a mile a minute over here. What year? Pardon me if you said this already. What year did the South Carolina Horse Council actually become established?
1993.
Okay.
Believe it or not, we had our 30-year anniversary in 2023. It was a big deal. It was a pretty small little organization back in 1993, and they grew steadily over the next 10, 15 years. I first discovered the Horse Council back in around 2012 and got kind of roped in, long story, but the punchline is that, like most nonprofit organizations with a giant board, and we're all volunteers, by the way, nobody gets paid anything for this organization, part of what happens then, of course, is that politics.
Yeah.
You need to say politics.
Prior to 1993, what was the main staple for a horse council in South Carolina? And then what made it, maybe this was the pinnacle that set it forward to be created in 1993? You would think something would have been established many, many more years prior to that.
Well, I think that was kind of what I was suggesting about this whole notion of some need for a body to advocate for the horses in the horse industry and the horse owners and what's going on for them. And so the organization was kind of pulled together from some very, very staunch horse people who had determined that they really wanted to fill this need and launched a couple of programs that we'll talk about in a minute that are actually, of course, still in operation. But over the years, it's just kind of mutated back and forth and gotten bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller. And again, some of the issues with politics means that, made enemies some places and made friends in other places. And it ended up, it's just kind of been, I want to say, almost stagnant for the past several years. And part of that really is a problem with the funding. We were just talking about how does any organization, the money that's a potential for the state of South Carolina, by the way, I was on the cusp of talking about this equine impact statement for the economic situation in South Carolina. It was determined that the horses in South Carolina contribute more than $2 billion every year to the economy in the state.
And that's when you're talking about like the farriers are getting money or getting paid. They're creating all these different jobs just in the horse community, the barn builders and the fence and the feed stores and so on. Yes.
So and conservatively, I'm a social science researcher, and I can tell you that for what happens with trying to get numbers like that, they're fuzzy. They're going to always be fuzzy. How do you know how many horses are in the state? Well, that might be at any snapshot moment, and 5 of them died last month and 7 of them got sold to another state. And, so I'm trying to actually be precise about numbers gets really hard in these cases. But there's very clearly a need for somebody to be paying attention to what the horses are doing in the state.
Mike, you were going to say something?
Yeah, you're talking about the money that's spent, the expense of keeping, I keep a shoeing rig on the road for 50,000 miles a year. Mm-hmm. Everything that's involved in that. And, of course, Travis, they bought a new hauling rig. Of course, with him, he just dropped a check for it. Wasn't a big deal. Because he makes so much money podcasting that he can just get paid.
No. Go ahead.
So anyway, the whole idea there is that there was a recognized need, and the Horse Council stepped up. And the problem, again, I just said, was because we've got very, very limited funding. And over the years, we've applied for some grants. We got a couple of little grants here and there. But there's always been this, this need for, well, let's call it education. We're going towards the education here now.
Right.
And what are we talking about? We're talking about the average horse owner in the backyard. Got a pasture ornament maybe, or a horse that they really try to ride once in a while, or would like to maybe do some competition with or whatever. But I hate to talk about average people, because there really is no such thing anymore. There's this average horse, but the average person doesn't get started with horses because maybe they thought they were interesting looking, or my uncle used to have a horse kind of thing, and they don't know the first thing about them. They don't know what they need to be doing. The first time I got a list from the barn manager where I was taking riding lessons, lessons about what kinds of things do you need to keep in mind if you're going to have a horse. You're going to have, like we just said, farrier and veterinary care and the equine dentist and worming on a regular basis or not, or however you want. But you need to at least know that. Do you want to do worming for your horse every quarter? And what kinds of shots do you want for your horse? And, these are things that the average, if there is such a typical person out there, doesn't necessarily know going in. So the Horse Council really would like to take that role of making sure that the horse owners in the state are aware of what kinds of things really ought to be happening. By the way, as a footnote to that, we offer a course for animal control officers as to what they should know. Again, it's not like if you get a call that there's been a dog that's tied up in a backyard for 2 days and nobody's given him food or water, that's one thing. But if you get a call that there's horses on this property that are being neglected, how do you know how to evaluate whether the horse has actually been neglected, or what kinds of things do you look for? What kinds of questions do you ask? So we offer that kind of a course for law enforcement and animal control.
Now, you would think animal control people, just to get the job, would have to qualify for what to look for.
Yeah.
Hey, I would like to. What do you want to be? Can I be a police officer? No. Do you have the qualifications? Well, I watch Hill Street Blues for a while. No, you don't qualify.
Yeah.
Well, you can be the animal control guy. What do you do? Well, if they call for a dog,
watch Dr. Pole.
Yeah, they watch
Dr. Pole.
Yeah, and
exactly.
then I watched that a couple times. All right, well, go on out there. But it's not that case. They're not. Are they? I guess what I'm saying, are they actually qualified to do the animal control job outside of what that department allows them? Because a lot of animal control guys, some are independent. Some are like critter catchers,
exactly,
rodent wranglers.
Not necessarily. I don't know that there's any sort of. I do not know, and again, that might be a state-to-state kind of thing. Frankly,
right.
They make their own decisions. I know in my area, frankly, I think that the animal control officers, when I first moved in, they didn't have any at all, and then
that's sad.
People were complaining because there were packs of wild dogs that were running around the edges of town. But then the ones that are there now, I think, are associated with the fire department. By the way, they're not actually even the police department, and I don't know what their qualifications are.
I would think
different towns is different.
I would think that would be more. Would it be more code enforcement more than the fire department?
Well, potentially, and that's why I'm going to put in another plug for our course that we offer. It's an 8-hour, one-day, full-day seminar with instruction and, can I say, education about what are the codes in the state of South Carolina, what is a animal owner required to be doing, and what is the animal control officer allowed to do, and then what are the repercussions of all of that in the state. And again, those might vary from county to county and from city to city. So that's kind of an important thing.
There's a small, up on the left-hand side, across from where they're building that new barn, there's a family that went in there, moved on the left-hand side, and they have probably barely 10 acres. And what they do is they raise miniature cows and miniature, steer, miniature, a lot of miniature animals. Yeah. But they're in this small enclosed area. And my wife was like, when they were building the place, oh, look, they're going to have animals there and all this stuff. And on, maybe a 2-acre lot, they probably have like 30 of these miniature animals. And my wife just looks at it every time and goes, there's not enough room for them. I'm going to call animal control. It's maybe someone else will do it, but it's one of those, I want to do it, but I don't know how to approach that.
Right.
So, and it just makes her upset because they just literally, there's no grass out there anymore. It's just bales of hay and mud. And it's sad to see them out there. And then, of course, they rotate them out because they sell them online and people come and pick them up and they wash them up and stuff. But it's just, if you leave the property here, you might see it on the way out.
So that's a matter, again, of probably something like code enforcement, because most communities have some kind of a stipulation on what's the minimum size lot you can have to have a horse. And I don't know what they do with miniature cows or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's a stipulation, and you can only have, one horse per whatever amount of ground. And so those kinds of things are kind of important. But you would think that that's not the kind of thing we're talking about here necessarily. It's a matter of, does the horse have, for one, here's an example, in South Carolina, the horses are required, I don't remember the wording on this exactly, but they have to have some kind of shade I mean, it's South Carolina in the summertime. It gets hot, and if you have
Shelter.
absolutely no shade, you have no. Now you're not required. So my horse, for example, is out 24/7. She's in a pasture that's got 3 pretty good sized trees in it, so that qualifies. She doesn't have a lean-to, or any kind of a shelter at all, but she's got shade, and so those kinds of things. And again, this is kind of at the discretion of the animal control officer. Would they be able to say that that didn't constitute adequate protection, or it did, or whatever? So animal control officers is one thing. We have one of our board members actually gives equine first aid courses around the state. It's kind of her thing. And what's really interesting, by the way, is the composition of the board of the council. We've got this woman who does first aid. The first aid courses. One of our board members or directors is an equine dentist, and so he does a lot of stuff. Actually, Gary's all over the country with clients that he takes care of takes care of horses' teeth. I don't know how many people know that. You're working with feet here,
right?
Mike. So teeth are not as important. Maybe.
Well,
more
let's not go down that road.
I don't want to go there.
Well,
No.
they always
teeth, more colics.
You need to have teeth in your mouth.
They also say, that person looks a little long in the tooth, and the expression is because the horse is old and the teeth have gotten long, you have to float the teeth. That's kind of where that expression came from, correct?
Exactly. And if people don't understand that, they end up with all kinds of health problems, and the vet comes out and says, oh, wait a minute, when was the last time somebody looked at their teeth?
Right.
And so so if you're a responsible horse owner, can I say that? I have a vet, I have a dentist that comes every year. We have on the calendar that she comes out and checks the teeth every year. So those are the kinds of things that we would hope that they would know, that we also do.
I have a question before you continue.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about all these educational programs and seminars and all the things that the Horse Council offers. Is it free to the actual members, or is it open to the public and there's a fee for the public, free entry, or how does that work? How does that process work before we get into all the different more of the programs that you do?
So 80% of the time it's free to the public, I would say. It depends on the actual event. But I'm sorry, did I say the public? It's free to the members.
I was going to say to the members.
It's free to the members, and a nominal charge to the public. We try to keep it, somewhat, can I say nominal? It's not, the goal is to make sure that people understand that this is an event that whatever, but we run events for literally like $5 or $10 at the entry fee.
Just because you do provide lunch and punch and pie and all that stuff.
Yep.
I mean, Mike was out there.
I put on 10 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, Mike just recently did a clinic for you along with Megan Ratkin. Dr. Megan Ratkin came out, and we actually have that video up on the YouTube channel.
Nice.
The Equine Dynamics YouTube channel, the whole entire clinic that Mike did. So those are kind of the example of what you do for, as far as clinics and education.
Right. So Mike and Dr. Meg did our footwork seminar last fall. Year before, we did a bodywork seminar where we had a couple of people, an equine chiropractor and a massage therapist, come out and did a clinic out in Hartsville with some horses. And so, so that was free for members to participate in those things. And again, like you said, we usually have lunch with them. And then I think it was like $5 or $10 or something for people who weren't members.
The biggest thing that I like, and this it takes a load off my mind. So we started the program out with you saying that some people just want to go out and have a horse. Now what do I do with the horse? They don't have any kind of support system. So if you're not knowing, if you're not part of a barn or part of a barn family, you don't know where to get further education as far as, what else do I need to do with my horse? They can come straight to your website and they can find out all this information and decide whether they want to be a member. Maybe they pay the $5 the first time around and see what you guys are actually about before they actually get into being a membership. But when you get into the membership, as far as the education that you guys provide, but you guys provide so much more. I mean, so much more.
Well, we try. And so then we do participate in things that are horse related, even if we're we're not offering a clinic. So, for example, last fall I was at the Equine Film Festival in Aiken, where they had 2 days of ongoing films and talks and all kinds of things about horses. Now, that's not something that, well, I gave a talk about international horseback riding because that's what I do, but we also had a booth there. You know, it's kind of a standard vendor space that basically was just an opportunity for people to get to know that we exist. And I think that's the most frustrating thing when we go to those kinds of events, to try to educate people that we even exist and that we're available if you have these questions and problems and want to participate even to some extent yourself. That, you know, people don't, I was stunned how many people had never heard that even South Carolina had a horse council. So that's kind of a problem right there. I was going to say I've got about 350 people on our mailing list who get a newsletter that keeps them apprised of everything that we're doing.
I'm on that list.
But thank you. And we appreciate everybody who's on that list. The problem is that that's 350 people. That's not nearly enough people. We know that there's thousands of horse owners in the state of South Carolina. At the very least, they ought to know we exist and that we have these opportunities for them.
All right, we're going to take a quick little break, and we're going to dive into the actual animal welfare program that the South Carolina Horse Council offers. So stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. Awesome, awesome, awesome. You having a good time over there?
I am.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, I could just keep going forever.
Yeah. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. If you'd like to ask us any questions at all, you can do that by going to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says contact us. Fill out that little form if you don't want to go live on the air with us, or if you want to leave a voice message. That's fine. A lot of people don't like to hear their voice on the air, so that's fine. We will read your message here. We'll answer it. Make sure you put a physical return address on there, and we'll send you out some magnets, some stickers for being part of the show. That's equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says contact us, and fill that out, and we'll get it read here on the air. And over my far right side is my very own favorite contact. It's Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good, Travis. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Season 12, Mike, episode 1. We got another 12 weeks of this. Actually, I think we're going to take Memorial Day weekend off, and then we'll come back the following weekend and wrap up the season.
Right.
So 12 season. This is actually, believe it or not, Mike, we've been doing this coming up on 4 years.
Right.
Are you excited about it? Yeah, you look
I am excited. I gave you my 2 cents.
I know. I got them right here. I'm rubbing them here in my hands. And laughing in the background there, joining us here in the studio, you can hear that is Dr. Julia Fisher, the Secretary of the South Carolina Horse Council. Thank you very much for joining us here in the studio.
Thank you. I'm delighted.
Now, you've talked a lot about the educational program and everything that you guys offer as far as, outside members and inside members. And the fee for being a member, are there certain levels to be a member? Like, is there a platinum? Is there like a bronze? So
there's different levels for sponsorship if you really wanted to go ahead and sponsor. As far as membership goes, there is an individual member, which is $20. A family membership
is that $20 a month or $20 for the year?
$20 for the entire year.
For
such a bargain.
Julia,
I know. We talk about it every year. We should be raising those rates. But though a little bit of homework I did over the weekend, again, looking at some of these other horse councils around the country, most of them are in the neighborhood of $50, $55, $60 a month. But so for an individual member, the other thing to know is that we offer some of the perks of membership. Again, reduced entry fees for all of our events, but also you can get we have a deal with Equisure Insurance. So if you have a property that you have homeowners insurance or property insurance on, you can get an additional $1 million rider for your insurance policy. This is really useful for people who have horse facilities where they do, riding or riding lessons or whatever. And again, it's an additional $1 million rider for some really not. I don't remember. It just went up to like $23 a year or something like that. It's a ridiculously cheap rate, but that's only if you're a member. You would qualify to get.
So you're telling me for $20 for you, and then an additional $23 for whatever the insurance is. So for $43 a month, I could have
a year.
A year.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, a year. Oh my God. I was ready to pay $43 a month.
No, $43 a year. And I'm sorry, I'm probably wrong. I think that I think the policy just went up. It's like $28 a year or something.
Oh, even still,
it's very, very reasonable. So that's an individual. You can get a family membership for $35. You can get a farm membership for $35. You can get a association organization membership. I have an organization membership because I do an endurance ride in the fall that I pay. So I pay $35 for an organizational membership that actually, what does that give me? It gives me actually, here's the advantage to these other classes of membership, and that is number of votes.
Okay.
Remember, we do have an annual meeting. We vote on bylaws and officers and all kinds of things every year. By the way, the annual meeting's coming up next weekend. It is the 22nd.
Oh, I got a thing.
And so, yeah.
Where we have an annual meeting.
I got a thing.
But if you've got a farm membership, you get 3 votes. You get you have that much weight in the conversation when we actually talk about issues that the Horse Council's trying to address. So there's an advantage to having a membership for sure. We also offer those liability signs. I don't know about North Carolina because that's where we're sitting. But South Carolina has an interesting and a very attractive equine liability stipulation at the state level that limits the liability for in facilities that have equine activities. This is because, can I say it?
Yeah.
Horses are large, unpredictable animals.
No.
And sometimes, yeah. So
And horse owners are unpredictable.
Yeah, I think the horse owners mostly.
and a lot of people around the country basically are kind of scared.
Yeah, a lot of
scared
North
off.
Carolina has a similar deal.
Okay, good.
I know that when we bought our property, we had that barn built. We were told that we were supposed to have the actual North Carolina law on the front and the back of or wherever the entrance. If it's a through barn, it has to be on the front side and the back side, wherever the entrance points are on that property. Now, unfortunately, we have one on the front, but not on the back. But technically, the only ones that come over, well, I guess Mike comes over, the vet comes over, the doctors come over, everyone comes over, and we need to get up on that.
Over there.
No, it's important, and we sell those signs. So they're $20 if you're not a member. They're $15 if you are a member. So
well, there you go.
I just had somebody the other day call me. She's not a member, and she needs 3 signs.
What are they made out of?
They're that heavy duty corrugated plastic, like
a vote here sign.
Exactly, like those step-in political signs that you see all the time. And so anyway, we offer those, and again, a reduced rate if you're a member. But so there's a number of perks to being a member. And additionally, go ahead.
Now, one of the perks that you might be going the same direction I'm going is the animal welfare program.
Yes, sir.
That you guys have for stallions to gelding and all that. So tell me about that, because that's very interesting when you have a horse that's out there running, quote unquote, free.
Well, and so we just said that the average, can I say whatever that means? I have to keep qualifying that average guy who's holding a horse. Right?
I'm an average guy.
The average guy who owns a horse is not necessarily made of money. And so having horses, every once in a while, you end up with something that can be an exceptional expense. So if you've got a stallion or you bought a colt that wasn't gelded yet or whatever, and there is a point where most people, can I say most thoughtful people, think about, doing something about gelding that animal, and it can be expensive. So we do offer a program if you are a member and you submit the proper paperwork, and it can be co-signed by your vet.
So what's the advantage? I don't know if you know the answer to this, not being a doctor, of doing the gelding program. Right. Isn't there an advantage from taking a horse that's a stallion and turning it into a gelding as far as riding capabilities? Or training, you don't ride do you ride a stallion? I guess is the question.
Yes.
You do ride a stallion.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
You do.
Is there an advantage? Like there's not as much testosterone? Is there not as much? They're not as amorous. Not amorous is the word I want to use. When in a training facility, like if I have a stallion and I have a gelding, the gelding's going to be more up to listen to me.
Absolutely.
No,
they're not, and they're not capable of creating problems for you down the road with
There's 2 stallions in training with Brett that I work on.
Is it really?
Very well behaved.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But somebody put the time in. With too many stallions, people are, it's a stallion, and they act.
They back off because
horses.
it's a stallion, right?
They're horses.
So stallions. I've ridden stallions in Mongolia, by the way. But so no. The point is, it's like having a dog that hasn't been neutered. They have different things on their mind,
hormones,
on a regular basis, right? And so most people, and again I say most thoughtful people, if you're going to use a horse for something that's going to be involved with people, you would like them to be a little bit more mellow, Let's put it that way. And so the geldings, it's the usual answer. It's the standard answer for that. As Mike suggested, there's other ways you can handle that, and that would include some serious and responsible training so that the horse is actually capable.
Now, on the other side of that spectrum, you gelded a horse. What about people that have horses that are getting, we use this phrase, long in the tooth?
Right.
You have a euthanasia program as well that
Right.
What do you just do? I just can't let Betsy go down right now, or I don't know what to do. How would I approach this? And the main thing that I worry about is once you, let's say, you have the vet come out and you made that decision for the final call of that horse.
Right.
What to do with that horse? Do you I don't have a shovel or a tractor or anything to bury it here on the property. How does that process that you guys handle, because that's part of your programs as well as far as being a member?
So actually, unfortunately, we don't handle any of the disposal.
Okay, so, all right, so I take that back then.
No, our program is basically designed to help with the vet bills for managing whatever's going to happen there, and then the rest of it, I'm sorry to say, is sort of up to you. But so that's just the two major issues for the animal welfare. I like to think that all of our programs are grounded in the general philosophy of animal welfare, and that would include, by the way, we do have some disaster support, and we've provided grants for I don't even remember the name of the organization, and it's probably not appropriate to name it here, but there was a barn that burned down that had a whole bunch of horses, and some of the horses died and all the tack was lost and whatever, and they applied for a grant, and we were able to help give them some support for rebuilding the barn. So there's places like that where we put our money. We also have a
what about because people, I saw a commercial the other day and it made me sick. We were watching something on Hulu and it said American Red Cross, send your money to help the people in the fires in California. And I go, hey, wait a minute. What about the Carolina, Tennessee area?
Thank you.
Why aren't we sending that? So have you guys have been involved with that as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned it. We just cut a check last fall, actually, to the mule packers up in the western North Carolina that were bringing in supplies to all the equine people from western North Carolina that had been impacted by Helene from the hurricane. So we do support those kinds of disaster relief and
members or not? I mean, anyone?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter. No. We that's kind of not part of the equation at all. Really, it's somebody in need here. And so I'm going to circle back just for a second in terms of our education program, because that's, again, I consider that all part of this animal welfare thing. But we have provided funds to the Governor's School for Agriculture in their new equine program. I don't know if you're aware that Governor's School for the state of South Carolina has 3 facilities. One is a science and math center. One is a arts and humanities center, and then they just the last few years put up an agriculture school that basically has allowed for an equine science program, and so we supported that with some funding. We have contributed to the 4-H program for youth in the state of South Carolina that does anything with equines. FFA support in terms of, again, dollars. We provide dollars for their programs, and
do you work with high schools at all to get them involved? I know you said that the FFA, like the 4-H club or anything like that. Is there a high school level that you guys are involved with, or any other college, like local community college as well? As
much as we can, not specifically through a school other than the Governor's School, as I said, for equine, but we also have, associations with, like, the High School Rodeo Association and a number of other organizations that are youth oriented. We really are we've got a scholarship program this year for the first time that we are actually have gotten 4 applications. We're going to be awarding a couple of scholarships.
That's awesome.
To some high school students. We try to open that up to the whole state. We did for a number of years participate in the state fair scholarship program, but that actually was pretty limiting to just those students who showed up at the state fair with a horse and did an interview and a little bit of horse show.
Because I would think that when you want to get more members in there. You want to get, because the youth of today is the horse riders of tomorrow.
Exactly.
And a lot of these kids today are I told you the story when we were waiting to get on the air. My wife started riding when she was 11 years old. And to get the kids involved and interested in at least any kind of, whether it be South Carolina Horse Council or any kind of council, to learn further education and get a better community, I think that would be a great stepping stone. Because, mommy, you should have seen the people at the South Carolina Horse Council came in. They have all these neat little things and stuff. And how much is it, darling? Oh, it's only $20 a month. No, a year. And you're like, oh my God, that's, little Julia, we'll sign up and we'll do and sign up, and you'll get all the information. And the little kids at home have the pamphlets. I know it's all on email, it's all paperless and stuff, but they have all that. They get an email, they can read all this stuff and just enjoy the start of learning to take care of those horses, and you start them off early, and what happens later on, they become better horse owners later on in life.
So we periodically have these giant expos. Mike has been a guest of ours at the expos off and on over the years.
Is that correct, Mike?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
He's nodding his head over there like, mm-hmm.
We love Mike. Mike has been a part of our organization on the periphery for decades now, and so he can attest to the expos. But one of the things that those ends up being is just kind of a giant extravaganza that has anything to do with horses, and I'm not always sure that's a good idea, because we end up with like last time was a 3-ring circus, and there you can't even keep track of what's happening all over the Equine Park in Camden.
They had the circus.
It was a circus, really, really, very much a circus, and complete with the Wild West show with the guns going off in the middle of everything. It was not funny. But anyway, the reason I mentioned that is one year, speaking of youth, one of our members was a past member and a great supporter is David Grant, who was I don't know if you know that name, but he's involved with the Marsh Tacky Association.
Right. I know David Grant.
I know Eddie Grant.
Oh, no, David. And so one year he actually donated for the Horse Council, by the way, a filly, as for a raffle. So we made some money by selling raffle tickets to
He didn't donate any chicken.
He did not donate chickens. And speaking of your 11-year-old younger self wife, Travis, this 8-year-old girl won this filly in the raffle, and it was just a beautiful thing, except that the horse had no training. It was completely just pulled out of the pasture. Yeah. So the next year we had a expo, and David was kindly and generously offered to donate a little colt that he had, and everybody was like, "Well, what are we going to do?" The biggest problem we had last year was a lovely thing. Everybody thought it was great, except this 8-year-old girl ended up with a horse she couldn't ride. She didn't know what to do with it, and so how do we manage that? Well, maybe we should get some training on the horse before we give it away.
Some level, right?
Yeah. So the question became, who's going to train a horse for nothing? And because it's all volunteer organization. Well, my daughter at the time was working on getting a reputation in the state as a horse trainer, and she said, I'll train that horse for nothing. So she did that little
even like little 6-week course, just just to be on lunge line or lead line, and how to stand in the stall to behave.
Right. So that year we actually gave away an awesome little horse. My daughter took him to couple of dressage shows and won some ribbons and stuff with him.
Oh, nice.
And 90 days that she had him, it was a beautiful little horse. So,
awesome.
Anyway,
awesome. We're going to take a quick little break, and when we come back, one more little segment, we'll let you get back to playing with your ponies. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. He'll be right back. What happened, Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened?
Which time?
I don't know. I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah.
I'm lost.
Have I talked about everything I wanted to talk about?
Well, this would be the time to do it.
I know.
This is our little
closing.
Yeah, closing segment. So the key word that you're listening for is Julia. Where can our listeners find you if you have any information? This is where you basically just spill your guts, and website, phone number, email address, whatever you want to give out there, Facebook, all that stuff. So wait for Julia to finish writing.
Okay. Going down her checklist.
Yeah, I don't want to forget the actual email address or the website. That would be bad.
That would be very bad. All right, Mike, you ready?
Yes.
Julie, you ready?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stine. Don't forget, if you'd like this podcast to perform live at your location, your clinic, your garage sale, if you got a wedding going on, you want us to be out there, we can do that as well. Just email us over at equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says clinics. And fill that little form out there, and we'll pencil you in. We got a bunch of new things. This is the start of season 12, episode 1. Mike's got a whole bunch of things in the bag. He's not letting me know yet. We got to make sure all the ink.
We have a big bag.
We have to make sure the ink dries on the contracts and stuff. We got a couple places that we're going to be out live and about town. So we'll let you know as soon as those dates get closer. But you're welcome to fill up our calendar now. Go to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says clinics, and we'll come out to your location and do this exact same show in front of all your friends and family, or your enemies. Doesn't matter as well. As long as we have an audience, we don't care. And over to my far hand side, my very own friend and family is Mike Stine. How are you?
I'm doing good. Travis, how are you doing?
Doing all right. And joining us here in the studio, all the way from the South Carolina Horse Council, Secretary Dr. Julia Fisher. Thank you very much for joining us. We're having a great time with you this week.
Thank you. I'm having a good one.
So, Mike, what did we learn today?
What did we learn today?
With Julia, at the South Carolina Horse Council, we talked about the legislation and promotion of the equine community and the equine business in the state. And what did we learn from that, Julia?
Well, we didn't learn it, but I want to put a plug in for the fact that there are 2 bills right now winding their way through the legislature in South Carolina. One of our directors is, in fact, a congressman in the state. And those 2 bills are designed to provide funding for the kinds of things that we're talking about now. I've said before that the Horse Council is functioning on donations and odd grants here and there, and actually membership dues, which are puny in terms of the actual ability to support the things that we really want to do. So these 2 bills would provide 2 different schemas for finding money to help support the Horse Council, and
the two are the Equine Advancement Act and the Equine Promotion Act. Are those the 2 bills you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And again, they're slightly different schemes to, again, basically come up with enough money to help to finance the kinds of activities that we've been talking about and expand on them and make things like you're talking about, maybe disposal for the euthanasia program and a few things that we would like to increase our presence and our ability to manage. I did not mention also under education that we put together a new...
Well, hold on. I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. Yeah.
And also, outside of the small nominal fee that it takes to join the South Carolina Horse Council, it's all the education that you guys offer as well. So, Julia, did you want to add a little bit more to that?
Yeah, just one extra piece, actually. I don't know how many people are aware that Clemson University is breaking ground on the first veterinary school of veterinary science for the state of South Carolina. South Carolina does not have a veterinary school, which is really sort of a crime.
So you have a whole lot of veterinarians coming from out of state to South Carolina.
And not enough. We really could use a lot more vets in the area. So this is going to be a huge boon to that particular aspect of the horse culture in South Carolina. And the Horse Council has earmarked a nice little chunk for a student at the veterinary science school. So that would be part of our scholarship program, would be to actually support a student at the vet school.
And Mike, your experience when you were out at the South Carolina Horse Council doing your clinics out there?
We had a good time, always do, and always get some good questions, and hopefully share some things that helps a few horse owners out.
And you and Julie are teaming up together here at the next, that's one of the dates that we need to confirm about, that you were going to do something for Julia.
Right.
In the process.
We have not confirmed any dates on that yet.
And we'll let you know when that is, and so you can come out and see us act like a fool like we do here on the cameras. And also, the last thing that we learned about today is the South Carolina Horse Council's Animal Welfare Program and also your euthanasia support system.
Right. And so to that end, we have, of course, a website that I would encourage anybody to be referring to for anything and everything horse related that we can manage. And that would be the schorsecouncil.com. And if you go to that website, you will find an email address that is info.schhorsecouncil@gmail.com. And under that website and that email address, you'll be able to find all kinds of resources in terms of emergency preparedness. We have resources for hurricane preparation and evacuation, and sites where people can take horses and who do they need to get a hold of in cases where they are needing some support for all kinds of natural disasters and disaster preparedness. So. We also have stuff regularly, by the way. One of our members, our board members, is a vet with Clemson University, and so he provides us with all kinds of updates and information about outbreaks of various kinds of diseases and conditions with horses in the state that you probably ought to know about if you have a horse in the state.
Well, we'd like to thank Dr. Julia Fisher, the Secretary of the South Carolina Horse Council, for all our information and joining us here in the studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
And over there, Mike Stine, for doing all the stuff he does.
Yeah, thank you, Julia, for sharing with us, and I hope everybody's got something out of this today. Enjoy your ponies.
And my name is Travis saying see you next week. I killed myself.
Okay.
Okay. Audio, the videos are still rolling, but that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Julia, good job.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I think I covered actually everything.
Yeah,
Pretty
good.
close to everything.
A lot of stuff.
I really wanted to get in about specifically those bills. We kept talking about legislation, and I didn't say anything about the specific bills, but they're actually on the docket right now. And over the weekend, part of the reason I did so much work on that.
Speak with